You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of Inside Automotive right here on CBT News. And also, I should mention that we're now streaming on Roku and Apple TV, so check us out there as well. Our guest today is Pete MacInnis, who is the CEO of eLens Solutions. You've seen him here before on CBT News, and evidently you've also seen him in Automotive News, which was a big article this past week where he talks about some surveys that his company has run that a lot of people are taking notice of. So, Pete, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to join us on CBT News and talk about this.
Thank you, Jim, and Happy New Year to everyone.
Yes, thank you, and Happy New Year to you as well. A lot of activity around this article. Congratulations on it. I think it was a great article in Automotive News. For those that are listening to us, if you haven't read it, check it out at automotivenews.com or autonews.com. I think you're going to like what you see. It's very, very informative. This is the kind of information that you're going to want to be aware of as we go into this new year, 2024, with regard to car loans and all of that circulates around that. But give us an overview of what the article, from your perspective and survey, was all about, Pete.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. So what we did is this was actually the second in a series of 3 national surveys we conducted in 2023 on this subject. So the first survey, it asked questions about affordability, online payment quoting, etc. And I just want to share a few of those findings because that really kind of led into what we did in this article with Automotive News. So just a couple of takeaways from the first one. We focused in on some of the findings were that, 68% of dealers said that monthly payment is more equally important as the sales price from a consumer's perspective. And so we want to identify that because we know that affordability, average vehicle approaching $50,000, $735 average payment. So we really wanted to drill in and see how was the consumer, how was the dealers dealing with that? Mm-hmm. So we looked at another question was like around the online payment calculator tools. So 67% of dealers said that they do use those tools to help car buyers calculate their monthly payments. Mm-hmm. And then as a result of that, one of the questions was, well, okay, how's that going? And how close are those payments to that? And what was shocking about that is that 52% of the dealers responded and said that their online payment quotes should be within $50 of the final contract terms. Payments. Wow. And, I looked at that and went, wow, I agree with you. Wow. Yeah. 36, when you think about average term of 72 months, that's $3,600 over the life of the loan.
Right.
And so it's questions like that really kind of triggered the second survey and says, let's take a deeper dive into this around payment terms and quoting and things of that nature. So we looked at that around, and a lot of the results were about inaccurate and misleading online payment quotes. Mm-hmm. And that's really what the focus of that survey, the second survey was. And a lot of the data results that came out of it were quite interesting and obviously got the attention of Automotive News as well.
Yeah, for sure. What are some of the other takeaways from the survey in addition to those?
Okay. Yeah, so we kind of started with things like, okay, what's going on here when half the dealers think it's okay to quote a payment within $50? Why is that okay when consumers are really wanting to know what their true real payments are? Mm-hmm. And so one of the responses we found from the dealers was they said that 98% of the dealers said there's a gap between how dealers want to sell cars and how consumers want to buy. Mm-hmm. And what was around that was, consumers, they want to know price. They want to know the value of their trade-in. They want to know what their true real payments are going to be. Mm-hmm. And that's how they wanted to set up buying so that when they get to the dealership, it's more about affirmation, confirmation of expectations, saving time when they get there. And from a dealer's perspective, what we found was it was more around, we're going to give the customer enough information to get them to raise their hand and then get them to come into the dealership to work and close the deal. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so from that standpoint, they have a different approach to it. So another follow-up question was that led to the answers where 97% of dealers agreed or strongly agreed that there is a trust gap between the consumer and the dealer when it comes to arriving at the deal. So they've got two different approaches to it. That 97% of the dealers saying, that is a problem. There's a trust gap there. So as we start to dive in a little bit more, it was really around the deal, and the deal structuring was really where it became ambiguous, was around the finance terms. And so the dealers did tell us that, again, 93% of the dealers said that the customers wanted to know their payments up front first. And 85% of these dealers wanted to quote payments up front with the dealer, with the customer. So they really were pretty closely aligned with that, consumer and dealer, in terms of wanting payments and wanting to provide it. So the dealers did. And then, so we started talking about the quoting payments, and based upon that first survey where there was a lot of misleading or inaccurate payment quotes, we had to ask the question, well, how did you come about providing those inaccurate payments to the dealer? And 94% of the dealers said that they quote payments to the consumer before receiving lender decisions. Wow. So there's a whole lot of guesswork going on there.
No question about it. Which gets the consumer, that much more, upset over the entire process when that's the case, right? Because then that customer is going to be given other payments and, well, you qualify for this. We didn't know it at the time. I mean, it's just a huge disconnect, right?
Correct. And so what we were getting at in leading the questions in this survey, it was, well, why is there such a big disconnect between quoting a payment and the real payment? Consumers want real payments. The dealer goes, oh, well, they want a payment. Well, let's give them a payment. Doesn't matter if it's the right one or not. Let's just give them a payment the best we can. Yeah. And then, let's get them in the store and we'll figure it out when they get there.
Sure.
And so we asked, well, why is it that they're not able to provide, closer to real-term payments? Yeah. And the 80% of the dealers said that reduced pricing transparency from lenders is that biggest obstacle to providing that true deal clarity. That the lenders have been kind of somewhat moving away from that, and it was really around, historically when we look at, there used to be these rate sheet bulletins, and they had the 6 credit tiers and things of that nature. That's right. And what happened is, the consumers wanting the demand for transparency, and the lenders are becoming less transparent, says 84% of the dealers. Yeah. And it really has to do with the finance process and the lack of that information coming from the lenders. Yeah, this is a very hot topic too for dealers and lenders for that matter. It doesn't help them at all if this thing doesn't go right with the final user, the consumer. How often do you do these surveys, and when is the next one? Well, we did one in the first quarter. We did one in early third quarter. Okay. And we did one here in the fourth quarter at the end of the year, and it's just carrying over. And we're just now assimilating all that data to put it into a report, and we should have that ready within the next week. Can we get you back on the show, do you think, prior to NADA to share some of those results? Oh, absolutely, Jim. Okay. I just wanted, yes, we would love to do that. Let me come back to that in a second. There's one more thing I want to share. When we said there was a disconnect around the financing and that sales price, I just want to touch on that a little bit. The sales and finance, they're still siloed in the store. And the online process is still more about lead generation and the start of that sales process than it is actual deal generation. The finance piece is complex. Lenders are moving towards dynamic pricing down to the consumer qualification level rather than that legacy credit tier bucket pricing models that are totally disconnected from the sales process. And that's what is causing the problem today, because what the lenders are how they're arriving at their pricing models is different than what the digital retailing and the online tools are presenting. And that's where it's becoming, it's actually creating as much friction as it was intended to solve at this point. Oh, wow. That's going to take a while to sort out then. Yeah, so going back to your question, yes, we're going to be publishing this third survey report in this series before, the NADA convention comes up here.
Okay.
We wanted to have it done before there. And that survey, it really dives even deeper into this finance disconnect, and it includes some fascinating data results from dealers, lenders, and F&I industry. We thought this time, rather than it just be a dealer survey, let's get the perspective from lenders, let's get the perspectives from the F&I industry, and then see, is there a connection or a disconnect? Do they view it differently? Do dealers, lenders, and F&I all view that differently, or are they on the same page somewhat?
Right.
And it was quite enlightening and surprising that they were all pretty much in unison on all of the questions in the survey and their responses. So I'm just going to give you one preview example of that as a teaser before we put out the whole survey. So one of those results was that only 5.6% of the dealers said that the desk deal that they structured actually matched the final lender decisions more than 75% of the time.
Wow.
So only 3 out of 4 times did the deal match for only 5.6% of the dealers. The lenders, they said desking deals only matched their decision 1.33% of the time.
Oh my
And
God.
F&I industry folks, they didn't think it ever did on the initial desking deal.
Wow.
So that just really screams,
Yeah.
where there's so much room and need to be improved around finance, where finance really needs to move forward in the sales process and become a part of it at the front end of the process. So what we did is that's just one of the series of 12 by 14 questions in that next survey.
Yeah.
And we're really diving in deep into that. And then so that we'll have a better understanding of what we need to do moving forward.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. I know Eland Solutions is taking a leadership role in this movement. It has some great technology that to make this happen. So thank you so much for joining us on the show. I very much appreciate it. Any final thoughts for dealers before we close out?
Yeah, I think that for 2024, we are really primed for the next generation of auto finance to come to life, as we move forward here. And I really appreciate, your helping spread the word about this.
Sure.
It is going to take more than a village. It's going to require the whole industry ecosystem shift and collaboration on this. And, we're going to be exhibiting at NADA, and I look forward to meet with anyone that wants to be a part of this, next generation of auto finance.
Yeah.
It's really going to take a big movement to really move the needle and change processes. And really, I believe it's like getting the lenders involved and move them to the front of the sales process where they should be if we're truly going to improve customer experiences.
Yeah, for sure. And to your point, this isn't going to be done overnight. This is going to be something that you'll be working on for some time, that's for sure. So Pete MacInnis, founder and CEO of Eland Solutions, thank you so much for joining us on the show. These are the kinds of pieces of information, I should say, that we want to be delivering to our audience. So thank you so much for joining us. Very much appreciate it. And as I said, love to have you back on prior to NADA to talk about the next findings from your survey.
Yeah, Jim, I think we'll have the results in the next week. And as soon as we do, I'll reach out to you and set that up. And again, much appreciated. And thank you and to your audience, and Happy New Year, everyone.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.